All right, so Mook is saying there's a lot of players that aren't playing like they should have made the final cut. He's saying there's no heart, they're not having any fun, and this is what I said last night. I was sitting and watching with my dad and my son, and it's just us hanging out for the weekend, and we're watching the game, and it just starts to slip away, and I'm just like, I just hate their attitude, and it's infectious because my attitude was bad. As I watched the game, my attitude deteriorated. Their attitude sucks. Just the whole way they approach it, the way they approach each other. And he said there's no team, it's just individuals. And I don't know if it's roster construction, and we've talked about it since the beginning of the year. It just may be too much talent, too many different pieces that don't work together. They're going for it this year, but we'll get to the trade deadline in a second because they're really swinging for this offseason. That's pretty clear at this point, or they would have made a deal at the deadline. We'll dive into that. But Mook has got it nailed. That's the hammer on the head. This team, crappy attitude, not a team. And we can say it's not Brad, but it's all of them. They all share in this responsibility. And until they all see it that way, they won't be a team.
Yeah, and I think that's right. I think he put the nail on the head. They don't play for each other. They don't cheer for each other. They don't get up and I think some of that's the energy of who they are, the type of players they are. There's fewer Marcus Smarts and Marcus Morrises, and there's a lot more Jaylen Browns and Gordon Haywards and Kyrie Irvings, kind of low energy guys that are kind of and not like sparks, and the fact that you've had to include those guys that would bring that energy, who would kind of spark the team, and include them in the starting lineup because you had such low energy in that first group, that now the bench just looks like it's a comatose unit at times. I sat, I was watching the game I went to, I was just sitting there watching the bench, looking at the people getting up and cheering. I will say Kyrie was one of the few that got up and cheered. He sat on the bench most of the time, even when things were going well, sitting next to Mook, and then other players, and not a lot of, rah-rah stuff. Now, that doesn't mean, I'm not saying that they wouldn't or what have you, but there's a disconnect there. It's clear, right? And, there's bigger questions. We talk about that free agency questions, later on, but this answers the question: why aren't they playing well? It's because they're not connected. Emotionally, they are not in league with each other, and they are in league when they play well and when they're on the court together, without Kyrie. But there is this kind of duality to it, that bipolarness that you talked about, and it's got to change. It's got to, for them to be as good as they want to be, they have to place value on his talent. But on the other hand, and they've got to give less to themselves in terms of scoring, more rebounding, more defense. And on the other hand, when he's not on the court, they need to step up. It seems pretty simple, but for whatever reason, we're 45 games in and we're not any closer to the answer.